Stop before you spend any Eisenhower dollar. Check these three coins: a 1971D, a 1972D, and the famous 1776, 1976 Bicentennial Dollar. May look like ordinary $1 coins, but tiny details can make a big difference. The 1971D has a variety collectors watch for. The 1972D is especially interesting in high grades, and the 1776, 1976 has different reverse types. Which one should you check first? Stay until the end, because the last coin may have the detail most people completely miss. The coin number 1. Before you spend that 1776, 1976 Eisenhower dollar, look at it one more time. This isn't just an ordinary $1 coin. It is a special bicentennial coin created to celebrate 200 years of American independence. But here's what makes today's search exciting. Not every 1776, 1976 Eisenhower dollar is worth big money. The real clues can be hiding in the mint mark, metal, reverse design, condition, and possible mint errors. So if you have one sitting in an old collection, drawer, coin jar, or inherited album, don't spend it yet. Let's see exactly what you should check. The first thing you need to understand is the unusual date. You don't see a normal single year like 1976. Instead, the coin says 1776, 1976. Those two dates represent America's bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Eisenhower appears on the obverse, while the reverse features the Liberty Bell with the moon in the background. The design was created especially for the bicentennial celebration. PCGS. Now turn your coin over and look carefully at the reverse. This is where things get interesting. There are Type 1 and Type 2 reverse varieties, and knowing which one you have can make your coin much more interesting to collectors. The Type 1 and Type 2 versions have noticeable differences in the lettering on the reverse, particularly around the inscription. Don't just look at the date, study the entire design. And here's something many people don't realize. Eisenhower bicentennial dollars were actually produced during 1975 and 1976, but they all carry the dual date 1776, 1976. So don't assume every coin with that date was physically struck only during 1976. PCGS. Now look for a mint mark. If there's no mint mark, you're generally looking at a Philadelphia issue. If you see a D, it was struck at Denver. And if you see an S, that's especially interesting because San Francisco produced collector versions, including 40% silver issues and proofs. This is extremely important because not every 1776, 1976 Eisenhower dollar is silver. That's one of the biggest mistakes beginners make. Some bicentennial Eisenhower dollars are copper-nickel clad, while special San Francisco collector issues were made with 40% silver. So don't assume that a coin is silver simply because it's large, old, or has the bicentennial date. The exact mint and issue matter. Now let's talk about condition. Take your coin under good lighting. Look at Eisenhower's face. Look at the fields around the portrait. Check the reverse. Are there lots of scratches? Are there contact marks? Is the surface dull? Or does the coin still have sharp details and attractive original surfaces? This matters because large Eisenhower dollars were difficult to keep pristine. Even coins that were never heavily circulated could pick up marks from handling and storage. And this is where an ordinary-looking coin can become much more interesting. PCGS identifies the 1976 Philadelphia Type 1 as the scarcer of the two Philadelphia circulation varieties, especially in high grades. PCGS also notes that the Type 2 is common through around MS65, but becomes much more difficult at MS67 and above. PCGS +1. So don't look at your coin and simply ask, Is it old? Ask, how well did it survive? A worn coin and an exceptionally preserved coin can have completely different collector appeal. Now here's the part that gets people excited. Exceptional 1776, 1976 Eisenhower dollars really can sell for surprisingly strong prices. For example, PCGS records an auction result of $10,800 for a 1976 Type II Eisenhower dollar graded MS67+. A 1976 Type I has a recorded auction result of $7,638 in MS66. PCGS +1. But don't make the mistake of thinking your circulated dollar is automatically worth thousands. Those prices are for exceptional, professionally graded examples. A normal circulated bicentennial Eisenhower dollar can be worth close to its face value or only a modest premium, depending on the exact issue and condition. That's why the phrase 1776, 1976 Eisenhower dollar alone isn't enough to determine value. You need the complete identity of the coin. Mint mark, type, composition, condition, and any genuine error or variety. Now let's talk about errors. If your coin looks strange, don't immediately assume you've discovered a rare mint error. A scratch is not an error. A gouge is not an error. A damaged edge is not automatically an error. Post-mint damage can happen decades after a coin leaves the mint. A genuine mint error is something that occurred during the manufacturing process. So if you see unusual doubling, missing details, an unusual strike, or another feature that looks genuinely different, take a closer look before making any claims about value. And please, do not clean the coin. Don't use polish. Don't use toothpaste. Don't use chemicals. Don't scrape it. Don't try to make it shiny. A collectible coin's original surface can be extremely important, and cleaning can permanently hurt its desirability. Now imagine this. You find an old box at home. Inside are several large dollar coins. You pick up one and immediately notice the strange date. 1776, 1976. You flip it over. Liberty Bell. Moon. Eisenhower on the front. You almost put it back. But then you notice the mint mark. You examine the reverse. You compare the lettering. You look at the condition. And suddenly, what looked like an ordinary dollar becomes a coin worth researching. That's the fun of coin collecting. You don't know what you have until you actually inspect it. And that's why I always recommend checking the details before spending an old coin. Now let's quickly review what you should look for. First, check the 1776, 1976 date. Second, check the mint mark. Third, examine the reverse Type I or Type II design. Fourth, determine whether the coin is a normal clad issue or a special silver collector issue. Fifth, inspect the condition. And sixth, look for anything that could represent a genuine mint-made variety or error. If all of those details check out, then you have a much better idea of what you're holding. But remember something very important. Not every bicentennial Eisenhower dollar is rare. Millions were produced, and many examples remain available today. PCGS lists a mintage of 113,318,000 for the Philadelphia 1976 Type II circulation issue, while the Philadelphia Type I had a much smaller mintage of 4,019,000. PCGS +1. That difference alone shows why you should never judge a coin simply by its appearance. The exact variety matters. And the grade matters. So if you have a 1976 Eisenhower dollar, don't throw it into the spending pile just because it says $1. Turn it over. Look closely. Check the mint mark. Study the reverse. Look at the surfaces. And if you believe you've found an unusual example, protect it and consider getting professional advice before selling. Because the truth is much more interesting than a fake $1 million headline. Most 1976 Eisenhower dollars won't make you a millionaire overnight. But a rare variety, exceptional grade, special silver issue, or genuine mint error can make an otherwise ordinary-looking coin much more interesting to collectors. And that's exactly why this bicentennial dollar deserves a second look. So the next time you find a 1976 Eisenhower dollar, don't just see $1. See the history. See the bicentennial design. See the mint mark. See the Type 1 or Type 2 reverse. And most importantly, look at the details. Because sometimes the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable collectible isn't obvious from across the room. It's hiding in the smallest details. The coin number 2. Stop before you spend a 1972 Eisenhower dollar. Look at it one more time. This large $1 coin may look ordinary, but there is a reason serious collectors still pay attention to high-quality Eisenhower dollars. The tiny D mint mark, the condition, the strike, and any genuine mint-made error can make a huge difference. And here's the part you don't want to miss. A normal circulated 1972 D isn't automatically worth thousands, but an exceptionally preserved example has sold for a surprising amount. So if you have one in an old collection, coin jar, drawer, or inherited album, don't spend it until you know what you're looking at. The 1972 D Eisenhower dollar was struck at the Denver Mint. More than 92 million were produced, so the date itself isn't extremely rare. But coin collecting isn't always about how many were originally made. Sometimes the real challenge is finding a coin that survived decades with exceptional surfaces and sharp details. PCGS. Look closely at the front of your coin. You'll see Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States. The date 1972 appears below his portrait, and the small D mint mark identifies Denver. That tiny letter is important. If you're checking a 1972 Eisenhower dollar and you don't see a D, you're looking at a different issue. But if you see that small D below the portrait, you have the 1972 D. Now flip the coin over. The reverse shows the Apollo 11-inspired design, with an eagle approaching the moon and Earth in the background. This design connects the Eisenhower dollar with America's historic achievement in space exploration. And this is one reason these coins remain so popular with collectors. They're not simply dollar coins. They're connected to Eisenhower, the space program, and the history of American coinage. But now let's get to the question everyone wants answered. How much can a 1972 D Eisenhower dollar be worth? The honest answer is, it depends heavily on condition. A circulated 1972 D can be worth only a modest amount above its face value. But once you start reaching extremely high mint state grades, the story changes dramatically. PCGS describes the 1972 D as scarce in MS66 and higher, and notes that it becomes one of the tougher Denver circulation strike Eisenhower dollars in very high grades. PCGS. And here's the number that may surprise you. PCGS records an auction result of $13,200 for a 1972 D Eisenhower dollar graded MS67+, sold by Heritage Auctions in July 2023. PCGS. But don't make the mistake of looking at that number and assuming your ordinary 1972 D is automatically worth $13,000. It isn't. That price belongs to an exceptional, professionally graded specimen. This is why condition matters so much. Imagine you have two 1972 Eisenhower dollars. Both have the same date. Both have the D mint mark. Both are genuine. But one has been heavily circulated. It has scratches, contact marks, dull surfaces, and noticeable wear. The other has sharp details, beautiful original surfaces, strong luster, and almost no distracting marks. To a beginner, they're both just old dollar coins. To a collector, they're completely different. So take your coin under good lighting. Look at Eisenhower's cheek. Look at the fields around his portrait. Look for scratches and contact marks. Then examine the reverse. Are the details sharp? Does the coin still have strong original luster? Does it look unusually clean without actually being cleaned? If yes, that's when you should slow down and investigate. And please remember this. Never clean the coin. Don't use toothpaste. Don't use metal polish. Don't use chemicals. Don't scrape it. Don't try to make it shiny. A coin's original surface can be extremely important, and cleaning can permanently reduce its collector appeal. Now let's talk about errors. If your 1972 D looks strange, don't immediately assume you've found a rare error. A scratch isn't automatically a mint error. A dent isn't automatically a mint error. A mark caused by another coin isn't automatically a mint error. A genuine mint error has to come from the production process. So if you notice something unusual, especially unusual doubling, an abnormal strike, or another feature that appears to have happened during minting, protect the coin and investigate it carefully before making any decision. Another important point is composition. The regular 1972 D circulation Eisenhower dollar is copper-nickel clad, not a silver dollar. PCGS lists its composition as 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center. PCGS. So don't assume that every large Eisenhower dollar is made of silver. The 1972 D circulation coin is different from the special 40% silver collector issues produced at San Francisco. Now imagine finding a 1972 D in an old box. You pick it up. It's large. It's heavy compared with a modern dollar. You see Eisenhower on the front. Then you notice the little D. You turn it over and see the moon and earth. At first, it looks completely ordinary. But then you notice something else. The surfaces are unusually clean. The details are extremely sharp. There are almost no contact marks. That's when you shouldn't just throw it back into the jar. That's when you should take a closer look. Because with Eisenhower dollars, the difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional high-grade example can be enormous. And that's the real lesson of the 1972 D. The date alone doesn't make it valuable. The combination of date plus mint mark plus condition plus strike plus possible error plus authentication tells the real story. So let's make your inspection very simple. Start with the date. Confirm that it says 1972. Then look underneath Eisenhower's portrait. Find the tiny D. Next, examine both sides under good lighting. Look for wear. Look for scratches. Look at the luster. Look at the sharpness of the design. Then carefully check for anything unusual that could potentially be mint-made. And don't clean it. If the coin looks exceptionally well preserved or has a feature you can't explain, professional grading or authentication may be worth considering. Now here's something I really want you to remember. You may see videos online claiming that every 1972 Eisenhower dollar is worth thousands or even millions. Don't believe a headline simply because it sounds exciting. The vast majority of 1972 dollars are not worth life-changing money. But the top end is where things become interesting. PCGS currently lists the 1972 in its price guide with substantially higher values as the grade increases, and its auction records show that an exceptional MS-67 Plus example reached $13,200. PCGS plus 1. So if you have one, don't automatically spend it, but don't automatically assume you're holding a fortune either. Inspect first. That's what smart coin collectors do. The 1972 Eisenhower Dollar is a fascinating piece of American history. It carries the image of one of America's most important presidents and a reverse design connected to the Apollo era. And after more than 50 years, some examples have survived in extraordinary condition. That's why this coin is worth checking. Not because every 1972 is rare. Not because every coin will make you rich. But because you won't know exactly what you have until you look closely. So before you spend your 1972 Eisenhower dollar, turn it over one more time. Check the D mint mark. Check the condition. Check the surfaces. Check the strike. And look for anything genuinely unusual. Because sometimes a coin that looks like an ordinary $1 piece can become a much more interesting collectible when you discover what makes that particular example different. Don't judge the coin from a distance. Look at the details. And if you find a truly exceptional 1972 that's when the little Eisenhower dollar in your hand could become something worth taking very seriously. The coin number 3. Stop before you spend that 1971 Eisenhower dollar. Look at it carefully. You may have seen headlines claiming that old Eisenhower dollars can be worth thousands, but here's the truth. Not every 1971 dollar is rare. The exciting part is finding an example with exceptional condition, a recognized variety, or a genuine mint error. And there's one particular detail on the reverse that collectors know about, the famous Friendly Eagle variety. So before you put this $1 coin back into your change, stay with me and let's find out exactly what makes a 1971 Eisenhower dollar worth checking. The 1971 Eisenhower dollar is one of the first Eisenhower dollars ever produced. The series began in 1971, and Denver struck 68,587,424 regular circulation examples. The coin was designed by Frank Gasparo, with the reverse based on the Apollo 11 mission and America's historic first moon landing. PCGS plus 1. Look at the front of your coin. You'll see Dwight D. Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States. Below his portrait is the date 1971, and underneath the date is the tiny D mint mark. That D is important. It tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Now flip the coin over. This is where you should slow down. The reverse shows an eagle flying toward the moon, with Earth visible in the background. The design celebrates the Apollo 11 mission and America's achievement in space exploration. Usmint.gov. But there's something else you should know. Some 1971 Eisenhower dollars have a recognized variety known as the Friendly Eagle. Why is it called Friendly Eagle? Because of the way the eagle's head appears on this particular reverse variety. The variety is catalogued by PCGS as FS9, a 1-type 1 reverse. PCGS notes that early examples have distinctive features involving the Earth and the eagle's appearance. PCGS. So if you're holding a 1971 Eisenhower dollar, don't just look at the date. Look at the reverse. Study the eagle. Study the Earth. Compare the details carefully. This is the kind of small difference that makes coin collecting so fascinating. Now let's talk about the biggest factor of all. Condition. A 1971 Eisenhower dollar that has been heavily circulated can have scratches, contact marks, wear, and dull surfaces. But an example that has survived decades with exceptional original surfaces can be much more interesting. PCGS estimates about 13,700 surviving 1971 examples in MS-65 or better, showing how the population becomes much smaller as you move into higher grades. PCGS. And here's the number that may surprise you. PCGS records an auction result of $10,200 for a 1971 Eisenhower Dollar graded MS-67+, sold at Heritage Auctions in January 2023. PCGS. But don't make the mistake of thinking every 1971 Eisenhower dollar is worth $10,000. It isn't. That was an exceptionally high-grade certified coin. A normal circulated example is nowhere near that level. That's why the condition of your coin matters so much. Imagine putting two 1971 Eisenhower dollars side by side. Both say 1971. Both have the D mint mark. Both have the same basic design. But one has scratches across Eisenhower's cheek and noticeable wear. The other has sharp details, strong luster, and almost no distracting marks. To someone unfamiliar with coins, they might look identical. To a collector, they can be completely different. So take your coin under bright light. Look carefully at Eisenhower's face. Check his forehead, cheek, jaw, and the open fields around the portrait. Then flip it over. Look at the eagle. Look at the moon. Look at Earth. Check for contact marks and scratches. And don't clean it. Never clean a collectible coin just because it looks dirty. No toothpaste. No metal polish. No chemicals. No aggressive rubbing. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and hurt collector appeal. Now there's another important fact about the 1971 D. It is not a silver coin. The regular 1971 D circulation Eisenhower dollar is made of copper nickel clad over a copper center. The U.S. Mint produced separate silver-clad collector versions at San Francisco during this era. US Mint Gov+1. So if someone tells you every 1971 D Eisenhower dollar is a silver dollar, be careful. The mint mark and exact issue matter. Now imagine finding this coin in an old box. You see the huge dollar size. You see Eisenhower. You see 1971. Then you notice the D. You flip it over and see the Apollo-inspired design. At first, nothing seems unusual. But then you notice that the coin looks incredibly clean. The details are sharp. The surfaces have strong original luster. And the reverse has features that make you wonder whether you're looking at the friendly eagle variety. That's when you stop. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Protect it and investigate it. Because the difference between an ordinary coin and an interesting collectible can sometimes be extremely small. Now let's talk about errors. If your 1971 D looks strange, don't immediately assume you've discovered a valuable mint error. A scratch isn't necessarily an error. A dent isn't necessarily an error. A mark from another coin isn't necessarily an error. A genuine mint error has to be created during the manufacturing process. So if you notice unusual doubling, an abnormal strike, a clipped planchet, a striking problem, or another feature that appears genuinely mint-made, that's when the coin deserves a much closer examination. And there have actually been certified error examples of the 1971 D recent auction records include clip planchet examples and other unusual mint-produced errors. Gray sheet +1. But again, don't assume every damaged coin is an error. Authentication matters. Now here's the real lesson of the 1971 D Eisenhower dollar. The date alone doesn't make it valuable. The D mint mark alone doesn't make it rare. The size doesn't make it silver. And simply being old doesn't mean it's worth thousands. What matters is the combination of variety, condition, surfaces, strike, genuine errors, and authentication. So if you have a 1971 D Eisenhower dollar, start with the basics. Check the date. Check the D. Study the reverse. Look carefully at the eagle and earth. Check for the recognized, friendly eagle variety. Then inspect the condition. Is it heavily worn? Or does it look unusually fresh for a coin that's more than 50 years old? Look for scratches and contact marks. Check the luster. And never clean it. If you find a coin that looks exceptionally well preserved or has a feature you cannot explain, professional grading may be worth considering. Now you may see internet videos claiming that a 1971 D Eisenhower dollar can make you rich overnight. Don't believe every headline. Most 1971 D Eisenhower dollars are not worth life-changing money. But the top-quality examples prove why collectors continue searching. A professionally graded MS-67 Plus example has reached $10,200 at auction. PCGS. That's a huge difference from the coin's $1 face value, but it is also an exceptional example, not the normal result. And that's what makes coin hunting so exciting. You don't need to believe every exaggerated story. You simply need to know what to look for. So before you spend your 1971 D Eisenhower dollar, give it one more inspection. Look at Eisenhower. Look at the date. Find the D. Flip it over. Study the eagle. Check the earth. Look for the friendly eagle characteristics. Examine the surfaces. And if something genuinely unusual appears, don't rush. Protect the coin. Research it. And if necessary, have it professionally authenticated. Because sometimes the most interesting thing about an old dollar isn't what you can see immediately. It's the tiny detail that most people never bother to check. So don't just see $1. Look at the history, look at the variety, look at the condition. And most importantly, look closely before you spend it.